Welcome to the third installment of the main event podcast, and today we are in Waterford, and I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Dylan Moran as he prepares for his comeback fight live on DAZN in Belfast. Dylan, thanks for having us down, mate.
Adam, pleasure's mine. It's a joy to have the whole lot of you down.
Why was Owen O'Neill for the Celtic title the right fight for you at this stage in your career?
Why was Owen O'Neill? The fight got presented to me, and it just made sense. After what happened in the fight previous, I just thought that was the right fight to put me back to where I need to be. And it's an exciting fight. Owen O'Neill is undefeated. It's on in Belfast, SSE Arena. Yeah, as they were getting through the details, I knew my answer, so I was like, sign me up.
I want to go back to this time last year where it was scheduled, obviously, for you to fight Florian Marku, huge pay per view show on Sky Sports, headlined obviously Chris Eubank Jr., Liam Smith, and you'd spoken in the build up about how, as a child, one of your dreams was to fight on Sky Sports. It was one of the reasons you got into boxing. So I want to ask a little bit, not during the fight, but in the few weeks prior, the camp, the build up, the contracts being discussed. What was that whole period like for you, and what was the thought process?
Looking back on it now, it was crazy. For a finish up, it ended up bigger than I ever anticipated. I didn't really know what I was getting involved in. Looking back on it, hindsight is a great thing. Of course, it was an amazing experience. I enjoyed every second of it, from the start to the finish. The build up was something else, and yeah, all in all, it was a great experience. It didn't end how I would have liked it to end, but I'm glad it all happened at the same time. It was a childhood dream to get to there, and I did through a lot of hard work. It took a long time. A lot of times it looked like it was never going to happen, but then out of the blue, yeah, it came along.
And I was there that night, obviously in the Manchester Arena, and I remember feeling a little bit more disappointment for you than anything that you didn't get to show anything of what you're about. We didn't get to show the hard work in camp, the skill you'd acquired, or even like your desire to win. I just want you to walk me through in detail, if you can, your feelings from the fight week through to the fight night. How much of it do you remember, and what kind of the thought process and feeling was like during that whole week?
Everything was perfect, I would say. No excuses. I enjoyed the fight week. I enjoyed, like I said, every step of the way was a great experience. I walked to the ring that night in full confidence. I was going to beat Florian Marku, and no one could have predicted what happened, but it did. I got caught cold. Anyone involved in boxing would know that. That shot wouldn't have done that to me 3 rounds in. But to be fair to Florian, he landed it. He slipped that jab, came over the top, and yeah, it is what it is.
And what was it like? Obviously, prior to the fight, there was a lot of talk, a lot of, I'd say, shit talk between the two of you, and it stirred quite a bit of traction on social media. Like the videos of you facing off were getting millions of views. You were throwing each other around at the press conference.
Yeah.
What was all of that like? Did part of it feel like it comes back to, not to bite you, but does it feel like it's just part of the game? Does it feel like, how does it feel after you get beaten in a situation like that, and you have to face up to it after?
I think it's all part of the game. And like I said, I wouldn't change it. When you're younger and you're visioning those fights and you're picturing yourself on that stage, that's how I would have likened it to be. You're there, it's top of the pops. Yeah, and it just added to it. It got great attention. Like I said, it was bigger than I could have ever anticipated. And I enjoyed every second of it. Of course, didn't get the result, but it is what it is. I'm glad I got there. I'm glad I showed up. I'm glad I took the call when it came. And yeah, it is what it is. It's been and gone, and it's all about what happens from here on in.
And when I spoke a couple of months ago to Gary Cully, and I asked him about his knockout defeat and kind of how the emotions affected him for the months after it, because he was also on a big show, first real big opportunity for him, and similar had happened. Like, and I just wonder if you went through something similar to him. He described it as some of the darkest moments of his life, and like you'd been beaten before, you'd shown resilience, you could come back. So was it similar to what he went through? Do you feel, or?
Very similar. It was absolutely hell after it. In the few days straight away after the fight, I can't really remember those. It's like you're here, but mentally you're not here at all. I remember having I was down home, and of course I say it all the time. You get beat, and people split. Everyone's got their jobs and their lives to get on with, and you're left sitting on the chair. And it was like, who am I now? It was like an identity crisis, so to speak, and that's a scary thing.
Mhm.
And I just kind of ran off. I just got on a plane and went to Tenerife, and I was making some bad decisions over there. I was drinking and partying and just doing things I shouldn't have been doing, which made it worse. Looking back, it just snowballed, and yeah, mentally it wasn't a nice place to be. I was waking up every day at war with the world, at war with myself. Nothing made sense. I just didn't have peace. And yeah, I don't ever want to go there again.
And how long did that last for?
So I was on for a few weeks, and I would have always thought I'm fairly clued in mentally. You know, I'm mindset, I'm into that. I have been for a long time. So the fact this was happening to me, I was like, how is this happening to me? Which made it worse. But yeah, my thoughts just ran away with me. I didn't want to box again, which made it worse. I knew I should be boxing, but I didn't want to box.
What made you not want to box? Just
I
the
just
defeat?
did just the game. I was just annoyed with the game. You know, I'd given so much, and you do that to me on the biggest night of my life. How can I accept that? What did I do to deserve that? How did it happen? I didn't cut a corner in the build up. I've spent 24 years trying to get there. I got there, and that's what you served me up. See, all these things are going through your head, and yeah, like I said, not doing the right things. On top of that, I drinking, eating bad food, just not training, which is something I'm so used to. Just made it worse, and you know it snowballs, and you're just in a bad position. Went on for a few weeks, and of course, the answer always is, you know, get back to what works, which is the basics. So I tried to get back in the gym and start eating right and just get back into a routine. And yeah, one thing led to another, and here I am.
And looking back, obviously, presuming you prepared so hard for the Maru fight, you gone through the full camp, prepared so hard your whole life for the big show. You said like it feels a little bit like, how can the universe do this to me? Is it a little bit, is there a little bit of that where you feel like the world's working against you? You feel like everything is against you. You can't get anything right. Is there a part of that going through your head?
Yeah, definitely, because that was the story for my whole career. You know, one step forward, two steps back. But this year in particular, my homecoming came through. Everything, the phone call came for Sky Sports after. I'm like, this is all unbelievable. It's all finally happening. And then, yeah, I got taken right back down a peg or two. Then on fight night. But yeah, like I said, it's been and gone. Acceptance was a big thing. Just saying, listen, Dylan, it's happened. There's no change in it. You know, in my head, it felt like my life was torn to shreds. But in reality, my life was fine. You know, my family and friends are home. The gym is here. Everything is normal. But in here, it wasn't. And it was just, look, when things like that happen, you have to go away. Different people, different things. I enjoyed being alone. Just leave the body process it, leave it go through you. And yeah, I'm all right with it now.
And obviously, as a fighter looking to learn every single day in here in this exact gym, how much did the whole experience of the fight week, the fight itself, processing emotions, how much of that did you feel you will be able to take from and learn from as you go forward for your next big opportunity, which is on the zone?
So sitting here now, I would say I'm more resilient, more hardened than I've ever been. I feel bulletproof all after that. And again, look, there's a reason why we go through what we go through. And as time goes by, it'll make sense why it happened and why you had to go through it, essentially. So, yeah, like I said, I'm sitting here. There's another chink in my armor after being through that. And yeah, I'm fit and ready to go.
And was there a big difference in the emotions with that loss? Because as I said, you'd been beaten before in the American debut. You'd showed so much resilience to come back from that and build up the record out of that. Was the emotions similar? Was it completely different because it was a bigger stage? Like compare the emotions for me of that first loss and then that Florian Marco loss.
Yeah, I think they were completely different. One being there was a degree of innocence to me back at that age. I was just finding everything fun at the time. You know, America came out of the blue. It was before I knew what I was over there. I boxed well for 3 rounds and I got caught in that fight. You know, that was a real fight. That was boxing. This one was personal. You know, I always wanted to get to Sky Sports. It was a big thing for me, and I got there. And yeah, like you said, you named it out perfect. I didn't get to show a thing. It was over before it began, and yeah, I was sat back in the dressing room. I remember I was like, what's after happening? And then yeah, you have to go home and deal with it.
And I want to ask as well, like a lot of people won't know that you've had quite a ride in boxing. From what I've read, you left school early. You slept in gyms to make your career work over the years. You made your pro debut in 2017, but I want you to take me back 10 years prior to that. How did you find boxing? How did you know this was going to be for you? And then bring me all the way up to where we are now.
So this gym we're sitting in. So I used to cycle around here when my dad was training as a youngster on the bike. So that's how long I've been boxing. And it was just always a massive part of my life. I didn't do anything else. I was pretty good in school, but I left school to box. I'd met Kieran Farrell along my travels, and yeah. And then one day I said, I'm just gonna be a professional boxer, and that took me, again, a degree of innocence. You know, putting a bag on my back, and I moved to Manchester, the heart of boxing in England, and I slept in the gym. I slept upstairs, and people don't see them things. You know, when a lot of stuff has happened for me in my career, the different heights that I've reached, they think it just happened out of the blue. No, that's all stemmed from that 2 years of living upstairs in a gym on my own. I look back on it, it sounds rough, but they were the best times of my life. But you have to go and do stuff like that in order to get to where you want to go.
And what were those conversations like when you said to the parents, I don't want to go to school anymore, this isn't for me? What are those conversations like?
I think they thought I was a bit mad because at the time, pro boxing, I wouldn't say it was big in Ireland. There was no blueprint to follow. I just came home from school one day and said I'm moving to Manchester and I'm giving up school, and there was nobody going to tell me any different. And the fact that I put myself in that position, you have to swim with it then. So before I knew it, I was over there. I was in Kieran Farrell's gym in Haywood, rough gym. You know, you'd earn your stripes over there. The ring was a quarter the size of this, and I slept upstairs. So no matter who came to that gym for sparring, who was always in the gym, Dylan. And yeah, I learnt my trade over there, and it was a great time.
And how old were you when this was happening?
So like 21, 22.
Wow, so still
Yeah, young. Like I said, there was a great degree of innocence to it, but it was a great time.
And did you have a huge level of experience built up to back you up going into the program as an amateur, or do you still feel you were completely novice at that point?
No, so I had a lot of experience. I'd fought every year as an amateur. I had a lot of amateur fights. I ended up kickboxing them for 2 or 3 years. Traveled the world kickboxing, so I had a lot of fights. I knew exactly what I was getting involved in. But in terms of pro boxing, no, because like I said, it wasn't a big thing here. I used to just watch it on the telly and fell in love with it. I remember being younger, watching Bernard Dunn and sitting on the end of the bed with my dad watching it. And I remember the green gloves vividly and saying, like, that's what I'm going to do. You know, I didn't want to be anything else, hence why I left school. When you have something in your head at that age, most people follow through with it, and if not, they should.
And as well, you're obviously someone who's become very well traveled through boxing. You've fought in Mexico, Spain, Germany,
Yeah,
America,
Austria.
Austria,
Yeah.
but then to get that Waterford homecoming I think it was last February or April, was it?
Last April.
Last April. What was that moment like for you? Because it felt like when you were speaking about how fighting on Sky Sports was one of the goals of your career, fighting in
Yeah.
Waterford was the other one, and they all happened so close to each other. What was that Waterford moment like? You obviously fought and stopped Maru that night.
Yeah, unbelievable. One of the best nights of my life, because the story to it is when I was kickboxing, we used to have shows here in Waterford, and I'm blessed with great support from Waterford. And people would pack into the halls, you know, and they were great nights, great times in my life. And I would always tell them I'm going to go and be a professional boxer. But I would say to my mum and dad and my close friends, and I'm going to bring big nights back to Waterford. So that's been on my mind, and I've been talking about it since like 16, 17, 18. So it always meant a lot to me for me to do that. And I done it, you know. I left the contract in Frank Warren to do that. I left good money on the table and I walked away from it just to have the homecoming, because that's what was important to me. That's why I got into this game. And then knowing that a good win at home with the support and we produce it right and everything goes to plan, I land a big fight off that. But the most important thing to me was bringing big nights back to Waterford. We've had our first one and we're on track now to look like we're going to bring many more, please God.
And I want to ask you, you touched on Frank Warren there. What happened there? You obviously were announced that you had signed with him. You boxed once on one of his shows. But I presume it wasn't a one-fight deal. What happened there between the two of you? Because it seemed, from the outside looking in, it seemed quite abrupt to us boxing fans that all of a sudden Dylan's with Frank and now all of a sudden he's gone.
Yeah, so there was different stories there that Frank left him go. Why would Frank? I won the fight, the one fight that I did have for him. It was not more than I went over there. I got a good contract off Frank. I've nothing bad to say about Frank Warren. Like I said, left good money on the table. But when I went over there, just this training setup and everything, it wasn't for me. I kind of jumped in too quick, and I wasn't really happy over there. And in
Did
the
he
midst
make you
of
move
that,
gyms?
say again, yes. So I
Right.
moved my life again to Manchester, but I was living with someone different this time in a different part of Manchester, and I just wasn't settling in over there. And while that was happening, someone approached me and said, I'd love to do the Waterford homecoming and have you headlining it. And this was like music to my ears. And I remember being so stressed that I was like, why didn't you come to me before I signed this contract? And I was up in a heap for a few days. How am I going to say this to Frank and the coach, Lee Baird, that I was with? And when I said it to Lee, he completely understood it. I was like, this is why I'm doing this, Lee. You know, this is why I'm living out of a gear bag the last few years and running around Europe for a homecoming. I said, it just means something to me and I have to see it through. It'll be a big regret if I don't. And he was totally understanding. He rang Frank there in front of me, and to be fair, there wasn't an issue. No problem, released straight away. And, you know, that homecoming took a while to happen. And I remember like saying, am I after making the wrong decision here? Like I said, I left good money on the table with Frank, 4 fights a year, guaranteed in paper. And I walked away from it because that's what the night in Waterford meant to me. And I'm glad I did. You know, now my career looks better than it ever has with this next fight and what's to come after. And had I not made that decision, I probably wouldn't be here.
And what was the plan with Frank? So if you'd signed for 4 fights a year, guaranteed, it was obviously a long-term style contract. What was the plan with him going forward? Did he have any specific ideas for you? And was he against an idea of bringing you back to Waterford?
So I never mentioned it to him because I just thought it wouldn't have been an option. But I wouldn't say he'd have been against it. Yeah, and it was just, I don't know. It was like the ship was going to sail, and I just didn't want it to happen. So when the idea of the homecoming produced itself, I just had to jump on it. And my parents thought I was mad. My friends thought I was mad. I was Frank Warren. I was living the dream. I thought this was the best thing ever. I never seen myself sat in his office. And now I'm walking away from a contract with him after one fight. But again, I followed what was important to me, and I'm glad I did.
And do you see similarities a little bit? Because I can hear them in your voice, the similarities of you leaving school at, what was it, 17?
Yeah.
To go and box and to go and live in Manchester, as to you leaving a Frank Warren contract to go and get the fight of your dreams. Do you see similarities, that it was still the little kid in you that had a dream that you wanted to fulfill?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. When I got into this boxing, I kind of live in the real world. I used to always say to my mum, I know I'm not going to get Lamborghinis and build big houses out of it. I said, but I am well capable of bringing a lot of people together in Waterford and having an amazing night. Well capable of getting to Sky Sports. And I spoke about that for so long, and it's so mad because it's like I spoke it into existence, really. Everyone close to me will tell you I was doing their head in. I'd be telling them every day what I'm going to do. My thing was, I'm going to have a homecoming, I'm going to fight on Sky Sports, I'm going to open a gym, and I want a little house in the country. That's my thing for years, and I'm on track to do all of that. But out of the blue, 2 of those happened within the space of 6 months last year.
I want to take you back to a really interesting point of your career from the outside looking in anyway.
Yeah.
You were obviously brought in, I think it was the end of 2020 and then into early 2021 by the McGregor camp as he prepared to fight Dustin Poirier as a sparring partner.
Yeah.
You were living in Dubai at the time, or you were brought out to stay in Dubai, which led to you having a set of online verbals with Jake Paul of all people. And I remember specifically, this is how strange the story was, is it was during COVID, so I was meant to be doing online school, but I wasn't. And I was sitting on my phone, and I had found a video of you sitting in a Lamborghini, giving it back to Jake Paul because he had kind of called you out online, and revving the Lamborghini and driving up in Dubai. And I remember thinking, this is absolutely mad.
Yeah.
Just what was that whole period like from that, whenever you started the December all the way to that January or February? What was that whole period like for you?
Looking back on it now, Adam, it was unbelievable. What an experience. And I'm so grateful that I got to experience it. I'll take that with me forevermore. Obviously, I got the call. I spent 6 weeks in Portugal, in Lagos, training. Then we came home for Christmas. We flew to Dubai. We spent 6 weeks there. And yeah, it was crazy. The excitement of it every day was unbelievable. Like I said, I'm very grateful that I got to experience it. And then, as if things weren't crazy enough during that period, I woke up one day to end up arguing with Jake Paul online, and that just took things to a whole other level. And I often sit and think about it, and I just start laughing because how does a kid from Waterford end up arguing with Jake Paul? How do I end up on TMZ in America? So yeah, life is mad.
And was there a moment where I just imagine when people's phone blow up with something like that, like, is there a moment you just pick it up and there's just notifications everywhere and you go and watch this and you're looking at it like, what is going on?
Yeah,
Like,
so there's a big moment. So obviously I was asleep because of the time difference. I didn't see the video, but I was getting up to spar Connor at like 4 o'clock in the morning because he was getting his body clock right.
First fight, yeah.
Yeah, and I wake up, I'll never forget it, and I could just hear my phone on the locker beside me beeping, 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 and I'm going in brushing my teeth, and I'm like, what? That's not my alarm. And I went out, and I'm still half asleep, and I'm scrolling through it. I was like, what is going on? Everyone's ringing me, and I honestly thought something bad was after happening. But then I seen the social media ones, and I knew there's something different. And I opened it up, and it was just gone everywhere. But everyone at home in Ireland was buzzing after. I didn't know what was going on. And yeah, so I see this. I'm trying to come to terms with it all. I walk downstairs. Everyone else has seen it in the lobby, and then the doctor just comes out of the blue and he's like, Dylan, you're after failing the COVID test, so you have to go back to the room. So while I'm trying to come to terms with Jake Paul taking the piss out of me online, I've been told I failed the COVID test. You have to go back to the room, and I've no one to talk to, and I'm like, what is going on? It was mad.
And then how did that transpire to you then, sitting in the Lamborghini tearing down the strip in Dubai?
Yeah, so I was in the apartment, and we're calling ourselves the COVID crew, like me, Lee Hammond, Keane Cowley. We all failed, and we're all locked in the hotel. And I was like, I just can't leave this slip. So off I went and got the Lambo, went out and made the video, do you know what I mean? And then that made things 10 times worse because that went everywhere as well. So yeah, it was just, yourself, how do you come to terms with that? It was like, it all felt, it just didn't feel real at the time. But like I said, it's good to look back on it now. It was an amazing time. It was crazy. And yeah, you just couldn't make it up.
Did that whole experience give you perhaps a little bit of a level of, I suppose, fame and online attention that you were uncomfortable with? Or was all of it kind of just taken in your stride? Because a lot of people with something like that, with someone so big like that online, can become quite overwhelmed with the level of attention they'll get off it.
Yeah, I just tried to kind of play the part, I suppose, at the time. Again, at them ages, there's always a degree of innocence. I was just going with the flow. But when I look back on it now, the magnitude of it never really hit me. But what shows it to me today is I still go places and people say, "You're going to fight Jake Paul." Like that's years ago, and look how big it was. It just shows the reach that guy has and what power he has on the internet. And he just mentioned my name, for God's sake. And I'm sure forevermore people are going to be talking to me about Jake Paul. But yeah, it was a crazy time.
And it's obviously 3 or 4 years on now, so perhaps a more matured outlook on it. But what's your view on him and his boxing career, if you want to call it that, or do you?
Yeah, I even when that happened, I never said anything about him. I told you I'd looked up his story. I say credit to the guys. You know, there's no such thing as bad publicity. I think they're bringing a lot of eyes to the sport. I see him arguing with Dana White over, pay for fighters and stuff like that. And yeah, besides, I was fuming that day. Being honest, I was like, this fella's after making a show of me all over the world. Um, Besides that, no, I don't really have a bad thing to say about him. Don't get it twisted. If I was to cross paths with him today, I'm gonna say, "Yo, what are you saying?" But no, credit to the guy.
Going back to the Owen O'Neill fight, I have two questions on it. First of all, I don't know if you would be, very interested in looking on social media and seeing what's coming from other camps, but what kind of concerns have you about Owen O'Neill with his weight? Because it seems like with his previous bout against, he's meant to fight Declan Geraghty and he had
Yes,
missed weight, and it still looks like it's going to be a big difficulty for him. So my question mainly is, what are you going to do if or when he misses weight?
yeah. So that was a concern at the start, and the way we came up with it was he's gonna have to weigh in a couple of times in the build up to the fight to make sure he's on track.
Okay.
And so far, everything is perfect. And also, I accepted the fight because I know what happened, and he said why it happened. And since then, he's hooked up with like Paddy McCrory and that. I was like, these guys aren't going to let him do that again. So they're obviously in the gym. They're not stupid people, and they believe they can make the weight. If he was to do what he done again, his career's over. So I don't think anyone's going to do that. So yeah, I give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm full sure. Well, I hope he makes weight on the day.
I seen there's been a bit of back and forth, friendly back and forth to be fair, online between yourselves, Declan Geraghty, Jay Byrne, obviously running his promotions as well. Where do you see yourself lining up with Declan down the line? I know you were meant to fight him originally in that homecoming
Yeah.
before Maru stepped up. Where do you see yourself lining up with him down the line eventually?
Yeah, so me and Deco was after getting a bit personal. That fight's going to happen. And ideally, in an ideal world, I beat Owen O'Neill and I beat Declan Geraghty straight after. That's the plan. Ideally in Waterford. But it's just blinkers on for Owen O'Neill at the moment. But yeah, Declan's card is marked. Me and Declan are fighting one way or another.
And I want to ask you as well about a few more domestic dust-ups almost you could look at across Ireland. We have Lewis Crocker, Paddy Donovan and bout in your weight. First of all, if those two were to fight each other, how do you see a fight like that playing out?
I think after the most recent performances, I would pick Lewis to win.
Okay.
I think when me and Paddy Donovan were having the back and forth, there was a lot of interest in that fight. But it's on the shelf now. To be fair to Paddy, since then he's progressed massively. Credit to him. I've been knocked back a couple of notches, and I know what I need to do to get back there in order to be in contention for me and Paddy Donovan to fight. And Owen O'Neill is the first step in getting back to where I need to be. And to be fair to Paddy Donovan, he's a fighting man like myself. I know if I make myself credible again, and when I ask for that fight, he'll take it. So in an ideal world, as I said, I beat Owen O'Neill, I beat Declan Geraghty to become Irish champion, 20-2, 2025. Don't be one bit surprised if you see Dylan Moran fighting Paddy Donovan.
Who do you think is Ireland's best pound for pound boxer as a male?
Ooh. At the moment,
Yeah.
active.
Yeah.
Oh,
Making it hard for you on
yeah, you
purpose.
put me on the spot here. I don't know. I don't want to kind of like piss anyone off. I don't know, but I tell you who I have most high hopes for is Pierce O'Leary. I think
Okay.
Pierce O'Leary is very, very promising. Very, very promising. I've been high on him from the very start. Best in Ireland at the moment. Yeah, I don't know.
So would you rate Paddy anywhere near the top, or would you give him any sort of credit
No,
like that?
no, I wouldn't, and that's not because we've had back and forth. I just don't think he's had them fights yet to consider him in that bracket. There's a lot of them on the way that look good and promising, and if I was to pick one of them, it would be Pierce O'Leary.
How does Dylan Moran and Owen O'Neill play out?
Oh, look, Owen O'Neill's a big, strong guy. He can have a fight. I just think I'd be Owen O'Neill, 7 days a week, twice on a Sunday, and that's not being disrespectful. Um, Once I start landing, I think I wouldn't be surprised if I stop Owen O'Neill in the mid rounds. That's what we'd be hoping for.
And obviously, it's great to see the Conlons are putting on huge shows in Belfast and across the country. You've obviously Tyrone McKenna headline, and also on the card is Kevin Ajarko.
Yeah.
Where do you see your future pledged with those guys? All going well. You beat Owen O'Neill. Do you see yourself moving forward with those guys or elsewhere?
Yeah, firstly, credit to the Conlons. It looks like they've saved boxing in Ireland at the moment. They're doing a lot of work, which is great to see. For a long time we were without opportunities, and now they're plentiful. Who knows? Like I said, one fight at a time. I'm a free agent at the moment. I've been that way for most of my career, and it's not a bad way to be either when there's a lot of opportunities around. So, yeah, just take care of business on August 3rd, and I'm sure we'll be sitting to have a chat and we'll see what's what. But yeah, I wouldn't rule it out.
How many years do you think you have left in professional boxing?
Ooh, I just love fighting, in a weird way. So I don't know. With that being said, I don't ever want to end up a punch bag, or you see people that have gone before me that just stay in the ring too long, and I think sometimes it's a bit sad. And I would like to think that I have the right people around me that'll tell me when to call it a day. But for as long as I can be in there, Adam, in full health and capable, yeah, I'm gonna be in there, having a go.
I want to go to have a few more topical boxing questions with
Yeah.
you before I finish up. So the first one for you is, who do you think wins out of Bivol and Baturbiev fights happening in October?
I think Bivol for me, pretty easy as well. I think.
Wow.
Yeah. I just think Baturbiev is made from. Baturbiev's pushing 40. Again, there's no writing someone like Baturbiev off. How can you write that guy off? But if I had to put money and you put me on the spot, yes, I would be picking Dimitri Bivol to beat Baturbiev.
Another one, how far do you think Conor Ben makes it in the sport? He's obviously someone in your division as well.
Yeah.
A little bit of a troubled soul, it feels like, over the last couple of years. How far do you think he makes it in the professional game?
Yeah, Conor Ben is exciting. Again, when you're working with the guys like Eddie Hearn and them, you're going to be brought along the right road. The management, that's something that I've never had. I just have to take what you can get. But when you have a media machine behind you like that, it's no end. And that's just how the game works. I know the ins and outs of it at this stage, but yeah. And Conor Ben's got a lot going on, so he's an interesting character. He's got a lot going for him. Yeah, would he become world champion? I wouldn't be one bit surprised.
Have you met Eddie Hearn before?
Yeah, I've met Eddie before. Joshua fighting Cardiff, yeah.
And would you ever like to? I presume he's someone you'd love to sit in front of and kind of
Yeah.
play your cards out a little bit to him.
Yeah,
He's obviously
definitely.
seems to be on top of the promotional game.
But yeah, they're the boys to be with, isn't there? Like Eddie's the man in boxing at the moment. I don't think there's any comparison to him really. I think he's in a league of his own. At the moment, I haven't got much to say. I'm back on the rebuild. I've got to fix what happened, right my wrongs, and like I said, August 3rd is my first step back to doing that, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've got a chip on my shoulder for this time around. A point to prove to nobody but myself, and yeah, I'm ready to go.
Usyk and Fury are obviously rematching in December. How do you see that one going?
That's a real intriguing fight for me because, I think maybe the loss is what Fury needed to get him back in the gym and get the best out of him. So it makes it a good fight for me again in the rematch. It wasn't like Usyk whitewashed him and it was just clear beaten. No, it was close enough, and we know Fury can come back and deliver the goods. So that's a fight I'm really interested in again. And if I had to put money on that, I would probably pick Fury.
And obviously, there was a video that came out of him maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I think,
falling out of the pub.
In the pub, yeah, and kind of in classic Irish fashion almost.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like, obviously, it's his first loss. It was a heavy loss, and on the biggest stage of boxing. As someone who's been in the professional game for many years now, do you feel like the mental health side of boxing is something that isn't really discussed openly enough? Like, do you feel someone like him could end up mentally damaged from a defeat like that, or just from the boxing game in general?
Definitely. Like, I look at, say, what I went through after my last fight. In the grand scheme of things, it's nowhere near up the ladder of what them guys to be dealing with, So I can only imagine the stress, the pressure, the anxiety, the everything that comes with it that they go through. So, forgive Fury if he falls out of the pub after a few points. It's not the worst crime in the world, is it? The man is human. But yeah, it's definitely something could be talked about a bit more for sure.
And what does the top of the mountain look like for Dylan Moran one in boxing and two in life in general?
In boxing, so I've always just wanted to be involved in big fights in Ireland, domestic fights that will live on, that people will remember and talk about in years to come. Ideally in the Three Arena, like the Burner Dun days. That's a special thing that I watched growing up, and it's always stuck with me. Um, to be involved in them, open a little gym, start giving back. Always, staying true to my character along the way in my career, and yeah, and then just helping at the end of it all, and opening a little gym. I'm on track to doing that in life, just to be in full health. I don't want for much in this life, Adam, but what I have, I'm very happy with, very content, and yeah, just grateful for every day as it comes.
What is the dream? Who's your dream fight? You could pick any active welterweight, super welterweight, doesn't matter. Any active boxer worldwide. Who would you like to take on?
I'm going to say Paddy Donovan in Ireland,
Yeah,
Three Arena. That would be, yeah, that's it for me.
that's the pinnacle.
That's I wouldn't say the pinnacle, but that's where I'm trying to get to.
Why him?
Because we've had a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of interest. That fight really caught fire. And, as much as the Jake Paul thing, I can't go anywhere. And people still say to me, when are you going to fight Paddy Donovan? So the interest is obviously still there. And I owe it to the people that have put me where I am today to deliver that fight. And like I said, I'm back in the gym. I'm head down, working away. And I have no doubt in my mind that I'll get there.
And then one more opportunity for you to give a message to all the fans who are hoping to show up at Belfast or watch live on DAZN for Owen O'Neill. What can they expect from Dylan Moran, and what can they expect going forward after this fight?
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to catch fire. Owen brings a lot of support. He's got this football team behind him. I bring my own fair share, and it's careers on the line. Maybe not so much for him, but my career's on the line. If I lose this fight, I as much as say where am I going or what am I doing?
Really?
Being honest, yeah. Or whatever ideas you've had of going forward, you may throw them out the window, because if I don't beat Owen O'Neill, none of them are happening. So yeah, my career's on the line, and I don't plan on letting it slip. So if you can be there, be there.
There it is, Dylan Moran on the Main Event podcast. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, you can catch his comeback fight live from from Belfast on DAZN against Owen O'Neill for the Celtic title. Dylan, thank you very much for having us down.
Adam, pleasure's mine. Thank you very much, my friend.
So just as we are about to wrap up the episode and the cameras are about to cut, Dylan started dropping a serious story on us, and it's about after his first loss in America. So I'm just going to let him carry on with this because everyone has to hear this story.
Yeah, so as if enough hadn't gone wrong already. Like I said, story of my career, one step forward, two steps back. I got knocked out in America. I'm giving up boxing, and yeah, I was finished with it. And I came home. You can only spend so long in the chair. I'm like, right, I'm going back at it. And I rang Connor Slater. I was like, bro, I need to fight. And he said, right, leave it with me. So he says, got you a fight in Mexico, Tijuana, Mexico. I'm like, yeah, sign me up. So the week before we were supposed to go, my dad and my best friend Stephen, they couldn't go. I can't remember the reason. So I was like, I've got the wind back in my sails now for boxing. I'm going alone. So they thought I was mad, which I probably was looking back now. I say, why don't my mother leave me do that? I flew to Los Angeles 11 hours. I got picked up in an Uber. 4 hours down to the Mexican border, to Tijuana. I spent like 6 hours there trying to cross it. I don't know what was going on. There was some trouble there. Got through into Tijuana, and met this promoter called Gabriel. So this guy picks me up in this pickup truck, and I'm flying around Tijuana with him. I don't know him. And I spent 2 days there making weight on my own. And then he picks me up again and he brings me to the show. So I think I'm going to some arena or whatever, but it was a nightclub. And it was the maddest setup I've ever seen. It was all these guys in wife beater vests. They were smoking fags in the arena, drinking little cans of beer. And I just didn't feel right. The travelling and all was getting to me. I was in this little dressing room. I was sitting on a bucket. I had no coach. I was wrapping my own hands. And I was sweating. And I just knew I wasn't cut out to fight tonight. And I was looking out the window and these guys were killing each other in the ring. And all these fellas smoking fags, screaming, shouting. And out of the blue, a doctor walks in. He says, Dylan Moore. I said, yeah. And he says, your fight is off. It's not happening. So I'm sat there. I'm in Mexico. Like, I'm after flying halfway across the world to get my career back on track. After getting floored in America. I'm sitting on a bucket. And I'm like, man, what else am I supposed to do here? Your man Gabriel comes in. He's like, oh, I'm very sorry. Will we go for some food? I'm like, so I'm not doing nothing else. I might as well. I went off for food with him. And yeah, it was just a mad time. I remember sitting in some little Taco Bell place in Tijuana. What a crazy city, especially at night time. Next thing, this guy, he just busts out crying. My fight's after getting cancelled, telling me that like his wife had been killed 3 weeks previous. She'd been shot in the garden. And I'm sitting there and this guy starts pouring his heart out to me crying. And I'm young enough at the time. And I remember thinking like, what am I up to? You know, sitting there, this fella's giving it the big one. I felt sorry for him. It was pretty emotional. And I remember getting back to the hotel room that night and sitting on the end of the bed after going through that experience with him, flying halfway across the world, fight gets cancelled, and just looking out the window on my own thinking, is this where I call it a day? You know, is this where I just say I'm done with boxing? Because I tried it a couple of times before and it didn't. Surely this was a sign, you know, sitting in Mexico on your own. But yeah, that didn't work either. I was back at it when I got home.
If anything, did that experience make you feel more like you wanted to walk away than the actual defeat did?
Yeah, crazy. What more could I do? Every road I went, every door was just closed in my face. Like, you don't hear people trying that much. People don't see that side of it either. So when they see me on Sky Sports or over in Liechtenstein or places like that, that's what I was doing to try and get there. Yeah, crazy times.
There you go. There's a bonus story on the Main Event podcast. Dylan Moran, again, thank you very much.
Yeah,
And
even saying that back to you, I'm like, who left me to go over there? Seriously though, you know what I'm saying?
who was responsible for you at the
Yeah,
time?
where's my mother? Like
Yeah.
my father.